Okay, welcome back to Energy Boom 101. I am Professor Erwin Corey. Special guest star in the camera today is T-Mac, a lovely, lovely gentleman that understands the absurdity of existence and has agreed to help me sort of run point on this. But this is Energy Boom 101. We're here to talk about energy. We've got a lot of stuff we're going to go over, a lot of good information right here in these lovely newspapers about the global energy rainbow. So we're going to go over that. And this is Dispatch 11, I think, of the Energy Boom 101. And we also like to always let you know that our slogan here at the Transparent Barrel Studios, and behind you, you can probably see Boom You. We're live from the TB studios. The slogan is connecting crude to consciousness, one gusher at a time. We trademarked that, so don't worry about that. And there's another one. Illuminating the chasm betwixt brain and being, one gusher at a time. And that comes at you, yeah, I know you'd like that. That comes at you when we're discussing the Symphony of Shale. And our viewers, and I think there's 4 of them now, they know that the Symphony of Shale is when we discuss specific Oklahoma oilmen that are doing things now. Aubrey McClendon, Tom Ward. We will get to that later. For now, let's give you a nice overview of what's happening with the global energy rainbow. And I'm just going to start pulling out articles, and we're just going to start sort of connecting dots. And if you have any questions, anyone can want to know. This first one, and by the way, today is a Wednesday. It's in October, that's for damn sure. And what is it, 22nd?
23rd.
23rd, thank you. And it's 2013 as well. Here we go. This is a simple story from the Wall Street Journal, and it's about U.S. gas boom attracts Norwegian investment. So what we'll do in the next dispatch, which will be Dispatch 12, is we're going to show you all the stuff we're going over on some maps so you can really visualize it. But for now, we're going to discuss it because there's hidden gems in these little articles. And the reason we're sort of tracking this glorious energy boom is that I think maybe there's something deeper going on. I don't know. I just have this funny feeling that if we were to do our best to try and get a general understanding of the energy game, which is primarily crude oil, but nonetheless the energy game itself, any community that all has to gather energy, it's quite a challenge. It's going on now. It's the energy's crude oil, and I think there's probably great opportunities to look at how we behave and decisions we make and a variety of other things that go into that barrel of crude costing a certain amount. And I think you can probably look at a barrel of crude at the end of the day, look at the dollar amount, and basically probably sort of dissect out what that says about the behavior of collective peoples, which is a good way to understand if your behavior is right or wrong. And as best I can tell, we're probably going to move away from the fossil fuels, the crude oils. We'll get a natural gas, lovely transition. And I suspect, and we can never discount the intelligence of the humans, but I suspect men and women around the world will find a way to have us shifted over to healthier energy sources. I don't know, 10, 20, 30 years, no one knows. That's what's sort of the fun of telling this story. Let's continue, because we were talking about Norwegian investments. And what's our time, by the way?
3:38.
Okay, so we got plenty of time. So just a quick overview. The U.S. gas boom attracts Norwegian investment. This article is really interesting because it tells you something specific with time and with dollar amounts that lets you know just how big this boom is. I just want to read this first paragraph, then we'll explain what's going on. And this is out of Oslo, Norway, by the way. Great, great town. They go nuts in Oslo. And it's probably pronounced Oslo for all I know. Who knows? Who cares? Ben cares. The Norwegian fertilizer producer, Yara International, said it and German chemical company BASF, you remember BASF, they made wicked-ass cassette tapes back in the 80s, they would decide next summer whether to build a world-scale ammonia plant in Louisiana or Texas. A potential $1 billion investment to take advantage of cheap U.S. natural gas. That pretty much gives you a lot of information to go with. Number one, you know that there is a decision being made by giant companies, and that decision won't even be made for another year. Now, if big companies aren't making decisions about world-scale size plants for another year, that lets you know that this boom probably has a long, long time to go. If they were making those decisions now, then they'd be ready to move forward. But they're still waiting for the economics to play out. And I'm inferring from that means they're still waiting to see just how much oil and gas we're going to pull out of the ground here in the United States, because they're uncorking it pretty good. So if someone were to say, do you have any idea how long this boom's going to last? I'd say, I have no clue. I just know that we're in a boom now. How long will it last? I don't know, but here's one thing you can look at. You know for a fact that apparently a couple really big companies from Norway and Germany aren't even going to consider whether or not they're going to build a plant in the United States, and it's a $1 billion plant, for another year. So to me, it sure feels like we're in the second inning of a boom. That's the way it feels. That'd be a fair way to describe that. It feels like you're in the second inning of a boom if these big decisions are still not even made yet about building enormous facilities to take advantage of gas. It feels like we're in the second inning. So that's what I wanted to point out to you. You could read this whole dang thing, but really to just sort of get an idea for what's going on, you just need to know that based on the cheap U.S. natural gas right now, which is, I don't know what it's at here, maybe $4, but you can get, you go over to Germany or any other place and it's twice that much, if not 3 times that much. So the rest of the world is probably basically watching how the U.S. natural gas market will settle in, how much will be liquefied and sent out, and then some of these folks like BASF and Yara will then make their decisions about enormous investments in the United States. If a year from now, these folks tell us that, yeah, they're going to go ahead and drop $1 billion into the United States, somewhere in Texas or Louisiana, I'd say, okay, now we're maybe in the third inning of a boom, maybe. So you may get a good idea for how really early this boom is. And it's an energy boom based on oil and gas, old school stuff. But there's a lot of great blending that's occurring. And a lot of these oil companies are already deep into probably wind and solar. That's one article. We'll show you on the global energy rainbow map that we have inside a little later. Here's another good article. By the way, we did welcome the Norwegians to the Global Energy Rainbow with that article. We like to welcome countries. We like to let them know, hey, happy to have you. And speaking of foreigners, we do want to let you know that today's drilling fluid is provided by, I think it's McClelland's, maybe? McClelland's? Anyway, it's an ILA. It's a single malt Scotch whiskey. It's a product of Scotland, if you can believe that or not. It's pretty good. I'd recommend you go gargle with it, or at least try and drill a few wells with it. In the meantime, we've gone ahead and talked about our sponsors. We've talked about welcoming people to the Global Energy Rainbow. We're welcoming Norway. Get ready to welcome 2 heavyweights, heavyweights to the Global Energy Rainbow. And this is from the Wall Street Journal. This is the weekend edition. And this is huge, so stand back. Russia and China have signed a pact. Pretty simple to figure out. And in the next episode, we'll show you on the map. But picture in your mind's eye Vladimir Putin. And we know he can kill you with his pinky. Have you ever heard about this, T-Man? It's unbelievable. Pull your heart out with his pinky, show it to you before you die. He's not going to do that in the oil fields. That's not going to help him. But Russia and China have come together to agree to explore for reserves in Siberia. That's a really simple reason. China needs a lot of oil. Russia needs a consumer because they're losing consumers around the world and they're scrambling for the next big consumer. Everyone knows China's going to buy everything in sight as long as they got the money to do it. So Russia signs a deal with them. And it's obviously, based on that deal, become all sorts of political entanglements. I mean, if Russia is going to sell China oil, then Russia and China are going to have to learn to get along in some way, and that obviously influences politics, and that influences all of our world events. So this is sort of the, not so much the point, but maybe the hope of this show, and the bells that boom you. Stop. Don't even move. Get your little eyelid. And don't ask for who they told, my friend. That's not the question you ask the bells that boom you. Get back into this. So, Russia and China. Big partners now in the global energy rainbow. As a matter of fact, interestingly enough, this was the Wall Street Journal. And then today, in the Delhi, Oklahoman, if you can believe this, and this is top secret, so if word gets out about this, we're all done. Other than it's in the Delhi, Oklahoman. Chinese and Russian governments agreed to multi-year oil supply deal. So now let's put some numbers to this thing. Let's see what's going on. What kind of dollar bills are going on in the global energy rainbow? This is from Beijing, by the way. Joe McDonald. What's our time, my man?
9:50.
I'm feeling good because we're at 10, and then I think I tell you what. I know I can give them overview of what's left in the next 5 minutes, and then we'll do dispatch 12, and we'll shoot it from the maps. Here we go. This is from Beijing. Russia has signed an $85 billion deal to supply oil to China. Visiting Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev said Tuesday, expanding energy trade between the giant neighbors. Okay, so we have numbers here. $85 billion deal, which, by the way, probably isn't really a whole lot. Hey, look at this. We get some numbers here. Once again, the Russian Prime Minister, and I'm going to destroy his name, but I know Dmitry Medvedev, said Russia's biggest oil producer, Rosneft, so Rosneft has been handpicked, shocker there, to supply this oil, will supply China an additional 70 million barrels of crude a year for 10 years. So that's one thing you can think about. So now we're getting numbers, we're getting timelines, and I'm hoping what we'll get is absolute confusion and absurdity, because that's what everything's about in the end anyway. I think it was the Germans that said, it goes by the blink of an eye, I think. And they have an actual beautiful phrase for that. I wish I could remember it. Anyway, but I feel sort of good about at least 2 or 3 articles here starting to give you a good idea of what's going on in the global energy rainbow, how it's all very early. All the players are sort of coming to the different resource plays and trying to gather them up and bring them back home. That's what everyone does. There's no way around it. It's probably incredibly powerful, I suspect, as far as forming societies. Clearly it has been. Crude oil was sort of the first global energy source. I suspect if we did a society all over again, it may be something totally different that's a first energy source. It could be carrots, who knows? But in this case, it was crude oil. And that gave birth to all sorts of things, from industrial requirements to recreational loves, and that gives birth to a shape of society. So I would offer you, with absolutely no ability to back this up with any footnoted knowledge, that crude oil being the first global energy source probably is a greatest common denominator that has fashioned the shape of society. It's that simple. We could talk to, you know who we'd love to have on the show? Daniel Yergin. Daniel Yergin right here on the Buchanan Street balcony, overlooking Boom U, talking about the global energy rainbow. I bet we're at 12 minutes. 12 minutes? Okay, I'm going to wrap this up, and then we'll do the next dispatch, and we'll actually show you the maps. We talked about Russia. We talked about China. They're out of control. Get ready to welcome to the global energy rainbow, and we love them, Brazil. Now, once again, top secret news. If word gets out, and it already is out because it's on the Wall Street Journal here, Monday, October 21st. That's 2 days old. That's not bad. Brazil oil auction draws interest, but also protest. Yeah, I could see why. I'm going to spare you the agony of reading this entire article, but I always love to at least open up with the first paragraph. We do have numbers with this Brazilian one. Brazil plans to auction off stakes in one of the world's largest offshore oil fields on Monday, in a move that will yield billions of dollars for government coffers, but which is drawing popular opposition because of the participation of foreign oil companies. Yes, yes. A story that has been told many a time. It continues to unfurl. We're going to follow where it's going. The Brazil story is actually pretty fun because that's sort of a different kind of dynamic than what's happening in other places. And finally, before we leave you from this Dispatch 11, because that's all you need to know about Brazil, we'll talk about them later, there's a few more little global energy rainbow things that are going on. And we'll talk about them in depth, but here, and this is sort of bad news in a way, but in good news in a way. Pennsylvania's hope fades for Shell ethylene plant. Now, Shell is Royal Dutch Shell, enormous oil company. I think they're in Amsterdam, by the way, maybe. Crazy stuff. They could be the first company to actually get into crude and cannabis. Huge opportunity there. You never know. But the gist is that Shell was going to open up a big ethylene plant in Pennsylvania, the same way that we just told you about BASF, the German company, maybe opening up a plant in Texas, Louisiana. That announcement we just told you about with BASF in Norway was made a year ago in Pennsylvania. But Shell is basically, looks like they may not be opening that. So does that mean that there's an energy boom bust? No, quite to the contrary. Once you read the article, you basically learn that the reason Shell may not come here is because all this natural gas that they thought they were going to get is probably going to come to the United States folks that need it first.